Hello everyone, welcome back to the shop. Today I'm going to talk about the Echo PB-8010 and the 9010 as well. I will discuss some of the common problems that we find with these blowers. I'll also discuss some of the things to look for if you're looking to purchase one of these blowers used. Just a second, I'll bring you in closer and we'll get right at it. Alright, so today on the bench here I've got a PB-8010, but this information will also cover the 9010 as well. They are essentially the same blower. These blowers are, I have to say, they're really good. They had some problems with the 8010, the early ones, and I'll go over some of those issues in a minute, but overall they've got that stuff figured out. And this is a large blower. This is 80 cc's, and just the overall size of this blower is very large. So that is one thing to take into consideration. Durability-wise, they seem to hold up very well. A lot of people kind of say these are a little bit of a copy of a Red Max, if you will. They're very similar in look. But durability-wise, they're fine. Engine covers are a little bit weak. They do crack and break quite easily. They're really flexible and soft. The plastic is. So you'll see these banged up quite a bit. The air filter covers themselves are pretty good. I haven't seen too many issues with them as well. The air filter bases are good. I haven't seen any broken ones yet. These latches and whatnot, you know, Echo's been using this style for many, many years, and they hold up. They're fine as long as the guys are taking care of them. They're not too bad at all. Gas tanks are really good. No issues with the gas tanks. They hold up just fine. The intake boots, there has been a couple things with these where they will let dirt in the intake even with the hose clamps tight. There's something about the two different dissimilar plastics here between the boot and the air filter, the carburetor housing here and the air filter base. So you will see some dirt that does get through here. So you'll see some guys will actually take these apart, put grease around them, and then put them back on to try to prevent that. So that's something I can show you in a minute. The housings themselves, the blower housings, are really good. I haven't seen any problems with those as well. Throttle handles, these are just like the PB-770. Echo's been using these things for a number of years. No real problems with this as well. Every once in a while you get a broken throttle cable, whatnot. It happens. Pretty common with Echoes in general. The straps are really good on these blowers. They hold up well. The early years, the early 8010s, they did have a lot of problems with the straps breaking and ripping off the main body here, but they have addressed that issue, and they seem to have fixed it. I haven't seen too many problems with the straps on the 9010s. Back pads here are really good. They hold up just fine, no issues. Top handle of the frame is fine, no issues again. The elbows are very durable. They got just enough give to them, but it's not a super hard plastic. So we don't see a lot of them that with holes in them. They do hold up quite well. The tubes are very large in diameter. They're dang near 5 inches in diameter. And they hold up okay. They hold up just fine. The swivels do wear out. The handles do break. Again, a lot of that stuff is just abuse, but overall they do hold up. The flex tubes, I would say, on the 8010, the earlier ones, they held up a little bit better than the 9010s. They seem to be a little bit thinner, but they hold. The 8010s are fine. The 9010s, for the most part, are fine as well. Just kind of going back around it. That pretty much just kind of covers the overall condition of the blower, just visually looking at one from the outside. So I'll go over some of the issues internally and then some of the, quote-unquote problems that I find with them. And let me get these covers off. I'll take the intake boot off, and then I'll take this cover off as well, and we'll discuss some of those issues. Alright, I got these covers off of here. Now, as far as the dirt, you can see all that dirt in the intake here, and it's up around this edge as well. And then inside the intake boot, you can see it. So even though these hose clamps were tight, you can see where it didn't quite seal all the way around that boot, even with the clamp tight, and it will get dirt in there. So it's something with these plastics just being dissimilar between the two that's causing that. Again, some guys you'll see they put grease around it, and that does help. It's kind of a band-aid, but it is something you can do if you feel it necessary. Something to look out for. One thing with these would be vibration issues. They do vibrate quite a lot. So occasionally you'll run into the intake being loose. So you want to grab this carburetor and just shake it. Make sure that it's not loose at the intake. We did see a lot of problems with that in the very beginning, but they seem to have addressed that. And then the recoils, they changed. They were using more of, you got two different screws here. You got more of a traditional bolt on the right, and then you've got the ones that go into the aluminum. A lot coarser of a thread, if you will, on the left. And the ones on the left is what they used to use for everything on this thing, for the recoil, but they changed that and they went to a more of a traditional bolt. So that problem has been eliminated, because otherwise this recoil would loosen up and rock really bad. But again, that was on the 8010 models. This is a newer 8010, so I don't see that on this one at all. So something to look out for if you're looking at an older one. Mufflers are good. I don't have any issues with the mufflers. None of them falling off or nothing like that. They hold up quite well. Fuel line's pretty standard stuff. You know, it's just Tygon line. Once they start to age with the ethanol or the heat, they will get stiff and start leaking. You might have to address those. The wiring on these things, again, because of the vibration, and they really tie them tight down here together. They're all zip tied in one big bundle, and the vibration will get really bad. And these wire that goes to the coil underneath here, underneath the intake, that wire will develop some cracking, or it'll wear through into the metal and it will ground itself out on each other, or these wires down here will ground themselves out. So if you have one that's cutting out real bad, you might want to check the wiring under here. And again, a lot of that is just vibration. A lot of times I won't zip tie these wires all back together. I'll just kind of let them float, just to try to avoid that problem. Coils, every once in a while, I will see a failure. Not too often. The coils are pretty good. They hold up as well. Now, as far as engine issues, the 8010s, the early 8010s, they did have some issues with what they call like a dry seizure, and you would get a lot of heavy scarring in the cylinder. But they would still run just fine. So it was a clearance issue between the piston and the cylinder when it got hot and it expanded, and it would cause heavy scarring and scoring in the cylinder and on the piston itself. They seem to have addressed that with the 9010. I don't see that issue very often anymore. But the crazy thing is that thing would have some severe heavy scarring, and I had customers that had blowers that were out of warranty period. I would take them apart. I would free up the piston rings. I would hit a hone through the cylinder real quick, put the thing back together, and it would continue running for a very long time. So something to look for if you have the opportunity, you're looking for one, or if the compression doesn't feel right when you pull the recoil, if you can take the muffler off of it and look in through the exhaust port and just inspect that cylinder, that would be a good idea as well, just to make sure there's no heavy scarring inside the cylinder. I've got one here on the bench that I can show you real quick, and then I'll go ahead and get into some of the other failure issues as well with these things internally that we see. All right, so here I have a PB-8010 cylinder. When I was talking about with the scarring in the cylinder, try to get that to where you can see that. You can see that heavy scarring down in that cylinder. And I've actually hit this with a hone just to clean it up. Now, this was something that was pretty common with the 8010s. On the early ones, they would get a lot of this heavy scarring. But again, like I said, they would run, and they would run just fine. You almost couldn't even tell they had this issue. So something to look out for on the 8010. And again, on the 9010, I don't see that too often. Carburetor-wise, I didn't talk about early. These carburetors are pretty good because of vibration. You have this top cap on the carburetor, and then this is your, it's not a choke, they call it an enrichment. lever, if you will, and it just lifts that needle up on the carburetor, the whole shaft, so you can start it. What happens is, because of the vibration, this one's not worn that bad, but this plastic cover, the black plastic cover here, and this enrichment lever, they will wear into each other really bad, and it'll actually wear this lever out completely. And I've seen them to where, because of the vibration, they wore out so bad that it actually cut this thing in half, and I've had to replace these enrichment levers. So, and then the shaft itself in here, they'll wear out completely. So something to look out for with these carburetors. Otherwise, these are pretty good carburetors. They hold up. They seem to be pretty sensitive on adjustment. I seem like I have to adjust them all the time, especially on the low side on the top. And then I don't get a lot of adjustment out of the high side on these things. They don't seem to take too well to adjustments. So something to be aware of with those as well. Not a major issue. And then some of the things that I've seen, a couple things here lately, is crank bearing failures. So you can see that bearing is missing a lot of the ball bearings in there. So this was a complete failure of the crank bearing. And that material just washed through the engine and basically destroyed it. This was a warrantyable failure. Echo took care of it, no problem, but I have seen this problem a few times. So again, if your blower is under warranty, usually not an issue, they'll cover it. But if it's out of warranty period, something that you might want to be aware of. Try to run, make sure you're running good oil in these things too as well. So I've got another one, 9010 down here. I'll show you kind of what happens as well when there's a bearing failure. Alright, so here I have a 9010 on the bench that had a bearing failure. Try to get my light. If you look at that crank bearing down in there, you can see it. Where the cage and the bearing came apart. And then it took out the piston. All that material just washed through the engine, destroyed it. This blower is only a few months old. Echo did cover it under warranty, and I do have a short block on the way for it. So it is something that does happen on occasion. Haven't seen it too often, handful of times maybe over all the blowers, so just downtime. And then one thing I didn't discuss was head gaskets. The head gaskets on these blowers as well are really good. I don't see a lot of leaking head gaskets. They hold up pretty good. And then one more thing, this blower here has a tube mount throttle. And then this is the newer design throttle handle. This has been out for several years. But this is a really good design. Really strong, really robust, holds up quite well. And then this is the updated strap design. These straps are really nice, really comfortable. They seem to be holding up quite well also. So overall, this blower is a good blower. They're solid blowers. They hold up well. Other than maybe an occasional problem you might have to encounter, they hold up quite well. They're very robust. The frames are good. The gas tanks are good. They don't fall apart. So if you're looking to purchase one of these things, this is just a few of the things to look for or what you can expect out of them. For the most part, I think you can expect good long life out of them. I have several customers that are still running 8010s, and they're holding up. So, as far as how they blow and move in air and all that stuff, I don't get into any of that. I look at it from just the mechanical side. I like to point out problems that we encounter, engine problems, housing problems, frame issues, whatever it may be. I like to point that stuff out to people, so then that's stuff that you can just be aware of, because that's the stuff that's going to cost you money. There's plenty of great videos on YouTube if you want to watch and, comparing them side by side, moving air and whatnot. So, but I gotta say, again, overall, this thing it's a good blower. They hold up well. So, there you go. I hope some of this information will help you make a decision if you want to purchase one of these, or if you're looking at another brand. You know, again, it's one of those personal things. You just got to go to a shop and look at them and test them and feel them and put them on your back. Make sure you're wearing them and how they feel, the ergonomics of them, because they are quite different between the blowers. Even though this blower is 80 cc's and it's a large frame, it is still pretty light. They did make this blower pretty, it's surprisingly light actually. So, well, there you go. The PB-8010 and 9010. Appreciate you watching.